You are listening to Women's Running Stories.
Hi, my name is Elvin Kibet. I live in Colorado Springs, Colorado. I was born and raised in Kenya, and I immigrated to the United States in 2010. And now I am an active duty soldier in Fort Carson, and I also ran for WCAP.
Yes, this episode features Elvin Kibet, who is a Kenyan-American runner, and she did indeed run for the elite team, the World Class Athlete Program, or WCAP, which is part of the U.S. Army. Elvin's running journey has been both integral to shaping her adult life and also to creating new policies in WCAP. Elvin's story is featured in the excellent new book, All in Stride, A Journey in Running, Courage, and the Search for the American Dream by Joanna Garton, which I have no doubt you will be very excited to read after hearing this episode. But before we hear more from Elvin, I want to welcome you to Women's Running Stories, the podcast where exceptional women runners share inspirational stories about their running experiences. I am Cherie Louise Turner. I am the host and producer of this podcast. Welcome. Thank you so much for being here. You are in for a treat. So yes, this episode features Elvin's running story. And right up top here, I do want to thank Joanna Garton for connecting me with Elvin. I was lucky enough to get to meet both Elvin and Joanna at the Boston Marathon earlier this year, and it made me all the much more excited about having Elvin on the podcast. When I met them, I had already read All in Stride, which I highly recommend. And I already knew I wanted to highlight the book on women's running stories, and instantly upon meeting Elvin, I was all that much more thrilled to feature her on the podcast. So a big thank you to Joanna for bringing Elvin's story to light and putting me in touch with her. And also thank you to Elvin for coming on the podcast and sharing her story here. So let's get to it. Elvin gets into terrific detail in this story, so there really isn't a ton of setup before we get going here. But a few things to know. Elvin was born and raised in Kenya in a small village not far from Iten. Iten is a town that is internationally recognized as a hotbed of elite running, not only for Kenyan runners, but athletes come from all over the world to train in Iten. This is also where Elvin's two older sisters, Sylvia and Hilda, relocated as they pursued their own running dreams. Both Hilda and Sylvia have been top international competitors and Olympians. And Elvin's twin sister, Ivy, and her younger sister, Valentine, are also competitive runners. Elvin also mentions several other people, and I just want to be clear on who they are before we dive in. She mentions Hugo, who is her brother-in-law. He is married to Hilda. She also mentions Coach Lee, and this is longtime University of Arizona running coach James Lee. Elvin also talks about Sally Kipyego and Janet Bockham. These are two Kenyan-born athletes who went to school in the U.S. and raced throughout their collegiate careers. And then they went on to become American citizens and race for Team USA in the Olympics. And there is also Shadrach, and that is Shadrach Kipchirchir, who is also an Olympian. But very importantly for this story, he is Elvin's husband. And together, Elvin and Shadrach have baby Milo, who will figure prominently in this story later on. All right, now we are ready to hear from Elvin. And she starts off by talking about what inspired her to become a runner in the first place. Here to share her story is Elvin Kibet.
When I was growing up, I didn't look at myself as a runner. I used to see my sisters, they were running every morning. They visit us in the village. So they used to train in Iten, and they'll come to the village once in a while and they'll go for their morning runs. And I'm like, wow, that is so cool. That is so cool. And for me, none of my parents or my siblings or even my teachers, they never pushed me to run, but they were pushing other kids to run in school. Games time, like we have like little time in the afternoon for everybody to go out there and do soccer or run or whatever you want. But for me, I was always with my books. I was always reading something, because I don't know, in Kenya during that time, it was like two things. You're either good in school or good in sports. And automatically, I guess they just assumed that because I was really good in school, I was, top of my class from kindergarten all the way. And they just assumed from the beginning. And me too, I kind of just accepted that I was not good. And I never tried to run even competitively, like even within the classes. We compete against the classes, like let's say you're in eighth grade and ninth grade and we're competing against each other. I didn't try that. I was just sitting in a corner with my book, and I guess the teachers were like, okay, this one, she just likes to read and that's all. And with my sisters, they would come in and they have cool shoes, they have really nice clothes. And I remember noticing that very early on, and I was like, wow, that's for them, that's not for me. But my big change really came when one time I was a senior in high school, and we were just so we had like a TV room, like an entertainment um, room in our school, and we would go there on Sunday afternoons, and mostly we would listen to like gospel music, watch gospel music and stuff, or a movie. And I wasn't even into that. Like I used to just read. And one time I found myself there. I don't even know what I was doing, and I found myself there. And the first thing that comes up was world championships. They were like broadcasting world championship there, and my sister was second place. And I was like, that's my sister. I was yelling at the top of my lungs. I was like, that's my sister, you guys, that's my sister. And everybody was hugging me. And for the first time, I was like, wow. And that really opened my eyes. For the very first time, I told myself, maybe I could be running too, because everybody started calling me the sister of a runner. Everybody, like we have like 800 students in my high school, and everybody was like, wow. And even when we were in the assembly, doing the morning formation, they said, they were like, oh, I'm the sister of Elvin Kibet, won silver medal in the world championship. And it kind of gave me like a lot of excitement and some pressure too, like, oh, now I have to run. So the next Friday we went to the field, and they were like, so usually we form a line, and then they say, okay, you are playing basketball, go over there. You are playing baseball, go over there, whatever. And then it comes to running, and they're like, oh, now you are the captain. I said, what? I don't even run. You guys, that's my sister running, not me. And they were like, oh, you will figure it out. And then I took off, and I was running. We didn't even have like running shoes or anything. You just run with your, you know, from your shoes that you have. And we were running around the field, and automatically I was just first place. But it was not, to me, was nothing. I said, oh my, they gave me like a mug, like as a gift. I said, what? That's nice. And then I forgot about running really. I just went back, focused on school, and I graduated high school. And I really wanted, I was always like, 4.0 student. But then that time I got B's. I only got like couple A's, and I got a lot of B's. And I did not like that. I said, what in the world? I was supposed to go to the best school in the country, and now my sister will have to pay my school fees. And I did not want that. I've always thought like, oh, I could make my way around, get a scholarship or something, because she's done so much. Hilda had done so much for me and Sylvia to pay my school fees, which was a lot because it was a national school. And I didn't want to put through that again. And I said, oh my God, what am I gonna do next? I was taking care of my grandma at that time. She was getting old, and they said, come to Iten, let's talk about your results and way forward. So it was a big deal for me. So I went to Iten and I got there and we watched Hilda's marathon. I do not remember which marathon exactly, but I think it was the first one. Oh boy, she was crying. The last 5 kilometers, she was crying. And you can just see her pain. Oh man, I was like, wow, you do that. You have to go through that to provide for us. And I'm over here thinking I'm just gonna like I felt like I have to do something. Like if she was able to go through that all that time, and I'm over here just enjoying life. I said, I think I should push myself a little more. And then she told me, oh, you don't want to go to a Kenyan university. There is also the US. You could always go to the US and earn a scholarship and do whatever you want, as in study whatever you want. And I was like, study whatever I want? I want that. And because in Kenya, you don't get to pick. You They pick for you. So I think they picked me to do tourism and hospitality management, something like that. It didn't sound like me. I was like, I do not like that. I mean, I appreciate that I got into a university, but still, I did not like that. And she was like, you can always go out there. There's a big world out there. You're smart. These grades really doesn't define you. There are other ways you can accomplish your dreams. And I said, wow, I want that. And I was like, what does it take? She said, running.
Running could provide a path to an education in the United States. Additionally, Elvin, as well as her twin sister Ivy and younger sister Valentine, also saw that being a really successful runner like their sisters Sylvia and Hilda could be a path to much, much more.
And also, what inspired me too was when I went to their houses. Oh my goodness, they had big houses. They just had like really nice stuff compared to the village where we were. Yeah, I mean, they had running water. They had toilets in the houses. I thought that was really cool, and I wanted that. And she told me, you can have everything like we have here if you just decide to run. And that motivated me so much, just to go out there and do whatever I want to do, choose my major, and really create a life that I want for myself. I don't have to depend on them. I depended on them initially to give me like that platform. And then that was it, really. I remember the very first day I started running, it was really tough. I got lost, and then I walked. I walked for like an hour, and my sisters finally found me, and I hated running. I said, I don't want to do it. And then I kept, Hugo was kind of became my coach. My brother-in-law became my coach, and he would tell me, you decide. It's like you have all the power. So it's up to you. You can come back tomorrow or don't. But if you don't, you'll never get to America. And Hilda was always coming to my time trial. So I had a time trial every other month. And every time I was improving, and I said, wow, it's not too bad. So it got better and better as I went. And then I met a few people that had already been in the US. They coming to Kenya. When those time trials were happening, a lot of coaches were coming, and they would bring somebody. I think I remember I met Sally Kipiego and Janet Bokum. She was running for Team USA. She's an Olympian. She's great. And I remember them telling me their stories, telling us like we were in a group, and they were just talking to us like opportunities and everything. And that really kept me going, because the training sometimes was very discouraging, because it was like a lot of new things. You are constantly tired. I wasn't used to being tired all the time. And changing of paces. You're doing on Tuesdays, you're doing fat legs, and then there's long runs, and then there's tempo runs. And but I am so glad that I never got injured. And I followed my sisters for every run, really. Like, we used to do morning runs together. Of course, not maybe not the same pace. We run the first 30 minutes, we are together, and then they'll go ahead. But we did the trainings together the entire time until I came. And some of the conversations we had, they just used to tell us kind of, it was like a scary thing, but also like motivating in a way, because they'll say, either you say that this or you go back to the village. And I did not want to go back to the village. I mean, the village is beautiful in its own way, but after seeing how they lived, really, like, they have cars, they have nice houses. I wanted that. Really wanted that. And I said, no, not the village. Okay, let's go do this temporary. Yeah. And it also helped that I was running with Ivy and Valentine, because we were always, bend to each other like, oh, are we going to make it? Oh, my goodness. I don't know. And, one of us, maybe good day, they were like, you know what? Yes, we can make it. Remember, today we went a little farther than yesterday. Come on, guys. Somebody was always, positive, and that really kept me going. So Hugo mentioned about, and Hilda mentioned about the scholarship, and then they mentioned to me about Coach Lee, who was at that time he was coaching the University of Arizona track and field, cross country and track. And to me it just sounded like yeah, but and I didn't know the times that they required. So I started training, and Hugo was very good at taking me like one step at a time. He didn't want to make me like overwhelmed. Like, he would say, no, get this through this week's training. So we'd draft everything before the start of the week, and I would do the training, and he'd be like, okay, yeah, that's good. And then he would build up, we build up. But then the time trials came, because the time trials were very key to determine if you were kind of a potential to a certain school or not. And then there will be coaches coming in from America all the way. And Coach Lee, I remember I didn't see Coach Lee until I think 6 months in my training, but I met other coaches, and everybody was always interested in me because I was always winning my time trial. And then the other piece of coming here was you had to do the SAT. I remember most of the team that I had that time, we were training together. Most people were okay with running, but not so good in school. But lucky for me, I was very good in school. So my SATs were like just one shot, and I don't remember the score, but it was very good. And then you submit the results, and then you get all these schools inviting you. I remember getting like 15 invitations to go to all these universities, but they were small ones, and I remember saying, whoa, yes, I got the school. And you got like, nope, you didn't. These schools you have to pay for yourself, but if you wanted a free ride, you have to earn a scholarship, a running scholarship, a full running scholarship. Otherwise they will not approve for your visa. So first you have to get good grades, and then run fast, meet their qualifying standards. So for me, I didn't have to worry about school. I got the school done. My sisters were still worried about school. They were studying several times. I didn't have to worry about it. I had to worry about the running piece. And my running was not too bad. So every time I kept improving, until I met Coach Lee, and Coach Lee told me my running I didn't meet the standard. But every time I kept improving. And eventually there was a school that was very interested in me, and we started doing the paperwork, because I kind of gave up in Arizona already, because Coach Lee wanted like really high. The standards were very high for the 3K, and I was only running the 3K. That was the 5K just looked like so long. So the coaches were using the 3K as the standard, kind of. Everybody was racing the 3K or the 1500. So I said, let me do the 3K. And yeah, I got a school. I'm not going to mention the name, but I got a really good school. There were a lot of Kenyans in the school. They had a great cross-country team. And I started doing the paperwork. But at the back of my mind, I was like, oh, me, I really wanted to go to Arizona. I really wanted to go. But then Hugo kept saying, you never know. Just start the paperwork and see how it goes. And then right before they had just sent me the I-20. I-20 is the official paperwork that the international student paperwork that says you can take these to the embassy. It shows like how much scholarship you're gonna get and how everything's gonna play out. Then they'll approve your visa or not. I had the paperwork in my drawer. I don't even know what was keeping me waiting. And then that night, before I decided I'm gonna sign the paperwork, James Lee called Hugo and said, "You know what? I have decided to gamble with Elvin. Just take her in. I think she has a lot of potential. Mechanics. She clearly has running genetics." And he said like, yeah, I think he would bring me and see. He really believed in me that I will make it. And bam, right there, I was like, oh, never mind about the paper that I had. I got my dream school. I got into my dream school. Nothing else mattered. And I mean, that coach was kind of upset with me, but I mean, it's life. You'll not always please everybody.
At the very last minute, Elvin got that offer to her dream school, the University of Arizona. But even then, there were a couple more hurdles she had to clear before the plans were set, starting with getting approved for her visa.
That's another hard step. Like you could have everything, you could be having everything like scholarship, good grades, running good, but then the visa might not be approved. And they never tell you the reason. You just go there, they interview you, and then they say, sorry, you did not get approved. And you ask the reasons why, they never give you a reason, and then you go home, you try again. And for other people, I was so lucky to have Sylvia and Hilda because they were kind of financially stable, so they would have been able to send me. But I didn't get my visa the first time, they would have tried another time. But a lot of families, from the village, they don't have money. They sell land, they sell all their cows and goats and sheep for you to go to the embassy, and then you don't get approved. Now what? It's a lot of, and then they put so much hope in you. They said, you know what? They say most, of course, as a parent, you do everything for your child. You say, let's sell everything that we have, and so we can, hopefully you can change our lives when you get back, when you get a chance to go to America. And we do that, we give back to our families so much in early on. Like there's so much pressure to educate your siblings, your cousins, everybody. You literally transform your entire village once you get a chance to come here. Luckily for me, I got my visa the first time. And I also did an English class. For Arizona, you had to prove that you can speak English or be kind of fluent in English. And a lot of people fail that class because in Kenya, we speak Swahili and our tribal languages. So English sometimes it doesn't come naturally. So I did that, and I signed the paperwork for Coach Lee real quickly. And yeah, in August of 2010, I was in Arizona.
Elvin had done it. She'd met the academic standards, she'd proved herself as a runner to believe in, she'd passed the English test, and she'd gotten her visa approved. And then she arrived to a new country and a new culture, to a sprawling university campus and city. It was an environment like nothing she'd ever had to navigate, filled with people who were complete strangers to her. And she was, in many ways, alone. When Elvin arrived in Arizona, her world changed completely.
I don't think I'll ever forget those first memories because it looked like I was just, I'm from another planet. I just got dropped in another planet. Like I was confused. Like I don't even know. I don't know if everybody feels the same way when they go to another country, but I was very confused. Like first, my teammates looked alike. Like they looked the same. I couldn't tell like who was who. Like now I look back and I said, what was that? I don't get it. But a lot of people have told me they go to Africa and they can't tell who is who. And it's not even your fault or anything. It's just a thing that happens. I could not tell. And I remember being very confused, like, oh my God, who's my roommate? And everybody was driving. And I was like, even the girls, like, I mean, in Kenya, only that time the men were driving and very few cars. My sisters were not even driving. And I come here, and everybody they're driving, and I was like, wow, unbelievable. I it was just fascinating. Like, and then our first run, the girls were so nice. I mean, when I went to high school, you get some bullying a little bit. Like they don't care if you're lost. They don't, and you're scared to kind of ask simple things like, oh, where's the bathroom? Oh, where can I find, like I was kind of scared to ask because I thought they would make fun of me, but they didn't. They were just so like they wanted to help me, but it wasn't like that the first few days though, because Coach Lee had to tell them because I kept getting lost. Like I would try to find my class. University of Arizona is a city in its own. Like to me, I mean, I'm used to one shop here, and I know everybody. No, I come to the school and I can't even find my class. I can't find my way home. You ask somebody, oh my God, help me to get home, and they're like, where's your home? I forgot my address. The address is here, and and now I like after like the first day, the second day, I was like following the girls everywhere, and they were like wondering like why do I follow them everywhere? Because I was scared to get lost. I got so frustrated. I cried a lot, and finally I had a phone and I could call one of the teammates when I get lost. Oh, Coach Lee. I'd be like, and then they would try to find me. They can't find me. They're like, where are you? And I don't even know how to describe where I'm at. Like I'm in a brown building. Okay, there are many brown buildings. And yeah, it was very chaotic, I would say. But the girls, after 3 days, Coach Lee explained to them, they say, okay, this is the deal. Elvin, she's from the village. She doesn't know nothing about being in a city. So please, you guys have to orient her. If you ask her all the time, like if she needs help. And when they started doing that, I was like, oh, okay, they are nice. They're going to help me out. And from there on, it got better and better. It got better and better. But I worked so hard to remember. I was writing everything down. I had a small book. I was writing everything down. Even sometimes like draw my way back home. Like, oh, this is McKill Street, go to Main Street, 2nd Street, turn left, right, until I get home. Yeah. The running actually was easier for me. It was less the training, I would say, less frustrating because we would go on the track and, I don't get lost on the track, right? We just doing circles and circles. And I would have so much fun. I see everybody. I'm like, okay, I'm good. I'm safe. The long runs were kind of a little, I would not go fast because I would stay with the fastest girls because I didn't want to get lost. Even though I would feel like, I think I feel like I should go faster. But early on, I would just stay with the team. And then we had our first race. It was maybe a month after I had arrived. And we went to Flagstaff. In Flagstaff, oh my goodness, it was so much like Kenya. There were like forests, like trees and green and nothing compared to Tucson. And I kind of felt at home. I felt like, I like this environment. It was cool and it wasn't too hot. It was nice. And I remember running my first race and I won my first race by far. And I remember Coach Lee kind of talking to me in the middle of the race and say on the sidelines, he said, "What are you doing?" I said, I'm just racing. And I was just, people were cheering and I was giving them a thumbs up. And but later I realized coach told me the girls that I competed against were not the best. It was like a season opener, so he wanted me to just, the fastest girls in the team kind of sat back and kind of let the others start the season, and we will all do a home meet back home in 2 weeks. Yeah, and then we go back to the home meet. We go back home 2 weeks later. We have a home meet, and all the girls were racing, and this, of course, the seniors and the juniors, they were fast. And I remember I put on my spikes for the very first time, and the entire time I was running, I was like, how do people? It felt like I was running on high heels. Like, it was so foreign to me. I had never ran like that, and I remember feeling like they were slowing me down, and I felt like I was gonna remove the shoe, because I've seen people in Kenya were running barefoot, no problem. I felt like I want to remove these spikes, but I didn't, because I felt like, oh, maybe Coach Lee will be mad at me, let me just. But I was 7 in the race, and it was hard because the girls were faster, much faster. We had a much bigger competition. And I remember the assistant coach was not so happy with me. I overheard her telling Coach Lee, oh, but it's not fair. She comes here, she has a full ride, and the other girls don't even have scholarship. Maybe they have a half or something small, and she's supposed to be winning the race, and she's not doing that. And Coach Lee was like, please be patient with her. She's going through so much. And I remember just turning away, crying and going. I wanted to come see Coach Lee, but I had them talking about me. So I went back, and I never told Coach Lee really that I had that. But it really broke my heart, and everything changed from there. Like, I was looking at running like, it's going to be fun. Now every training I was fighting to earn my spot. Like, and the girls were not playing. Like, the seniors, they were fast. When we went to those tempo runs and mile repeats, they were cranking the pace. And I was dealing with so much in my head, trying to adjust. And at the same time, you have this pressure. You have to be number one in the team. And yeah, and then now I was, I came to the realization that I wasn't fast enough for the team that I fought so hard to come to. And then now the assistant coach feels like I don't deserve to be here. And every day there were several times I passed out in training, mainly because I was dehydrated. I wasn't drinking as much water. I didn't know Tucson was a desert. Nobody told me when I was in Kenya. I didn't know it was a desert. I come here, it was 100 degrees. And I had never, people think Africa is hot. No, Tucson is hot. Like, where I am from is not hot. It's like 60, 70 degrees. And it's nice. It's so tropical. Here in Tucson, it was so hot. And I was constantly dehydrated, and I didn't even realize that until I was starting passing out in training. And then I realized, oh, I need to be drinking more. And then they said, oh, you have to drink Gatorade because it has electrolytes. You see, so I started learning now, like, what to eat, what to, how to approach training. And then summertime, I said, I have to change. This is where the change will happen. And then I realized that one of the teammates, Momo, was from Flagstaff. So I asked her, like, can I go with you to your house this summer? Now I think about it, I'm like, oh, wow, poor Momo. Because, in America, when you go to somebody's house, you have to pay rent and you have to buy food, help out. But I didn't have anything. I just followed her to a house, and I lived there like it was. I ate things. I just cooked a lot, and I never contributed anything. But she just let me, because in Kenya I would go to my sister's and do that, or like a friend's house, and they wouldn't charge you or anything. Later I realized, I don't know. I should have been paying for my food or something, or at least give them some money for the electric bill. And I didn't have any money. But that Momo really played a big role in really changing my running life, because I went there. At some point, she went on vacation with her family. She left me by myself in the house with 2 horses and a dog. And she had a snake. And I hated snakes because a snake bit me when I was 5 years old and I almost died. Yeah, I also, when I was in a house, the whole experience was so new to me. But I embraced it. I said, this is, Momo, she's the kindest, the most patient. Yeah. I just asked her, like, can you take the snake to your room? And she did. So I didn't have to see the snake every day. But I started running. Every morning, I would run 10 miles. Every single morning for 3 months, the entire summer. I ran 10 miles every single day, Monday through Sunday. No, actually, I rested on Sundays. Yeah, I think I rested on Sundays. I was still following the Kenyan tradition. They rest on Sundays and they go to churches. I didn't go to church. But I ran 10 miles every day, and every day I changed the pace. So Monday I would run easy, like conversation pace. Second day I run as fast as I can for the 10 miles. And then Wednesday I go back to running slow. Thursday run as fast as I can. Like that. Do you know, I came home and I had lost some weight, and we ran the first race, and I won the entire race, and beat like the second person by far. And Coach Lee was like, oh yeah, okay, now we are talking. And I feel like with the assistant coach, she kind of just let me. She was like, okay, now you earned your sport, you're good. And but I never settled. I knew I did not wanna disappoint Coach Lee or University of Arizona, really, athletic department, for giving me this big chance, and I screwed up. I just kept pressing on. Every season, didn't matter, until my senior year.
Elvin remained fully dedicated to giving everything she had during her collegiate running career, all the way to the end. And among her many accomplishments there, including breaking the school record in the 5,000 meters, she was a 6-time All-American. And then she graduated. And at that point, Elvin needed to make a choice about what to do next in her running life.
First, I feel like as much as running came to my life a little bit later, a lot of people here, they start running like in middle school, or high school. But for me, because it came late in my life, I fell in love with running the more I did it. So when I graduated college, I felt like there's so much more I could still achieve. I just needed more time, and now I wasn't gonna do it for a school. Now I'm just gonna do it mostly for myself. Another thing I would say was my family, really. Everybody was running at that point. All my sisters except one was running. And running just was so big in our family that I felt like I wanted to give it a little more chance. I also wanted to travel the world. Another piece that kept me in running was Shadrach. And I saw a big future for both of us. So when I graduated college, I was hungry for more. But to my realization, it was very hard to continue. I was used to full ride in University of Arizona. You get all the gear that you need. They fly you out to whatever race you want. And really, it didn't cost me anything. And then when I graduated, I said, so Shadrach had joined the military, and part of the reasons for him joining, like a small piece, was because even though he was such a great runner, there was nobody offering him sponsorship. So to me too, when I graduated, it was kind of like a shock to me, like, oh wow, I can get anybody interested in me. And yeah, I thought I was good, but it didn't mean anything in the professional world, And yeah, I remember being very sad about it, like, oh, I really want to run, but now what? How am I gonna if I decide to just run, who runs for free? Like, who is gonna pay your rent and your bills while you're just running? It reminded me back home. A lot of people in Iten really, like 80% of the people, they don't have sponsorship. They depend on the people that have made it, like my sisters, to give them shoes, to give them clothes, to wear, running gear, food, even food. You don't know how many people sit at my sister's gate every morning to just wait for her to come back from training so they can ask for a meal for the day because they're chasing the dream. Then I was like, oh boy, now I'm gonna be that. Really, I'm done with school and that's it. And then I talked to one of my teammates in Arizona. Actually, she called me and she was like, what you up to? I said, not much. I just realized life is hard out here. It's like, yeah, tell me about it. But there's this new sponsor. They're called Skechers. That was really the first time I heard about Skechers. And they are recruiting women. And I said, oh, tell me more. And she, we exchanged a few emails. And then she told me, let's talk to them together. So we kind of negotiated the contract, and in the end they gave us a contract, but it was really nothing because if I had depended on that, it would last me 2 months. And then what? So I had to look for another job, and if I didn't have Shadrach, then life just became so difficult because if I didn't have Shadrach to support me, then what? Then I kept the contract for like a year, and then they cut the contract into half. And it was already small, so it became events. It became even smaller. I said, really? What? I couldn't believe it. And I tried. I pleaded with them. I said, I need it because, the more races I get, the more experience I get, and it's gonna. But they were like, yeah, it's what it is. So second year, I was like, wow. I went home. I went to Kenya and I talked to my sisters and they were like, if you really want to be a professional runner, you either come to Kenya because it's cheaper or we don't know.
Elvin was at a crossroads. She didn't have a sponsor, but she didn't want to move back to Kenya. Her life was in the U.S. with Shadrach. The couple had moved to Colorado, and Shadrach was running as a member of WCAP. At the time, becoming a member of the WCAP team herself wasn't something Elvin was interested in. For starters, it did not look like a place for women.
Yeah, I never really was interested. But there was this particular day, a woman, she was the first sergeant in WCAP, and we really connected. We just had a conversation, and she was like, I'm in the military, because at that time I had not really met, mostly, and it's true, it's mostly men, but I never met a woman in the military. And when I met her, it kind of opened my eyes. I said, oh, okay, so it's possible. She told me her whole life story and how she's raised her family, and she loved Shadrach, and the team really supported like 110%. Like it was like she was doing everything for them. And I started thinking about WCAP. I felt like that's the team I needed. It reminded me of being in Arizona, like you have everything, they give you everything that you need. It's up to you now to make it happen. And I told myself, that's all I need. I just need the opportunity and go there and make it happen.
And that is exactly what Elvin did. She made it happen. To get into WCAP, first, you have to meet a very tough time standard for your event. Elvin was running the 10,000 meter, and she had met the time standard. But before she started training with WCAP, Elvin had to go to boot camp and then train for the job she'd do if she wasn't running, which for her was in finance. The Army contract was for 4 years, and the orders were to make the 2020, and which became the 2021, Olympic team. However, This did not come to pass. Not making the team was reason enough for the Army to end any athlete's time in the WCAP and reassign them to the other job that they had trained for in whatever location they were needed. So for Elvin, if she had been removed from WCAP, she would have been assigned to do a finance job in whatever location the Army decided for her. But that did not happen, and Elvin's assignment to run with WCAP continued, and it was based on her potential to make the next Olympic team in 2024. But long before she considered going after the 2024 Olympic team, she had a big surprise.
It was very interesting to me. I said, wait, what? So first, when I got pregnant, I tested here with Shadrach, and I was like, like, and I don't think that's a healthy reaction. I should have been happy. Like, oh my God, this is amazing, right? No, I freaked out. And I freaked out, and Shadrach was so worried. Like, why are you freaking out? I said, WCAP will kick me out. And imagine that's your reaction. That's not good. I was so worried. Like, oh, what's gonna happen with my job, my career, my running? Yeah, they're gonna kick me out. What's going on? And Shadrach was like, don't worry about it. They shouldn't kick. If they kick you out, that's insane. And I at the back of my mind, I was like, they might actually. And I was scared. I was terrified to go tell them, but I had to tell them. So I started with the physical therapist, because he's always working with me. With when I get injured, when you are getting any MRIs, any treatment, they're always the first people to go to. So I talked to them, and they told me they were very supportive. They said, yeah, you will tell the commander, but if you want to talk to him personally, you can too. But it shouldn't be a problem. They were very supportive. I remember crying, and they were like, why are you crying? I said, I don't know. and they're like, yeah, we support you. Everything is good. Don't worry about it. We're happy for you. Congratulations. And then I went to the commander and I told him, and he was like, oh, that's amazing. That's good. And I remember thinking, what did he just say? That's good. And yeah, I was with Shadrach there, and we were happy. We went home. And then 2 weeks later, I said, now what? Because so the coach didn't text me to go to training. There was nothing going on. Like my life stopped. And I said, what's going on? So I went back and I told them, now what next? And they're like, what next? We don't even know. We don't even have a policy that's for WCAP. So the big army has the policy that says, for the first 3 months, you do this and that, depending on your case. And it's actually a very good policy. I mean, it could get better, but it's okay. And then the next 6 months, you do that. And then the last stages, you don't do much. You're not allowed to be, in environments that are hazardous, like you're not going to be working with, somewhere where there's gas or oil, It's like a lot of information to just protect you and the baby. But WCAP didn't have that. So at some point I was wondering, should I be running? Should I be doing something? There was none. And then they came up with a policy, and they said they put down some things. And because also another female in WCAP, we had another female that had joined after I was pregnant. And when she got pregnant, then the policy was there. But unfortunately, that policy stated that if the medical professionals determine that you do not have enough time to come back, then you are automatically released from WCAP. And that's what happened to her, because I guess, but I don't know how they determine that, because that's a thing for future discussions. Like, how do you determine that? So there's a lot of room for improvement for sure, but I'm happy they took that first step to have that policy. And for me, it gives me hope. It gives me hope for WCAP and for other sponsors as well to believe that yes, as women we can do it. We can do it all. Yes, it's tough. It's not easy at all. Coming back to shape, props to the women that come back fast. But you're dealing with so much mental, physical, everything. You're challenged in so many ways. And then you have this little human that depends, his life depends on you. It's so much responsibility. And it's a lot. But we can do it. We just have to have that wiggle room.
Women do need some wiggle room when it comes to returning to racing after having a child, because it is not a process that follows a predictable trajectory. So with the new WCAP policies, there is room for improvement, but thanks to Elvin, there is at least a starting point. Because yes, she was the very first member of WCAP to ever get pregnant and face the unknown of how the Army would respond to this big shift in an athlete's ability to compete. The Army kept Elvin in WCAP throughout her pregnancy because of the possibility that she would still have time to make the Olympic team postpartum. But she wouldn't be aiming to make the team in the 10,000-meter event. She'd be aiming to run the marathon. But to do that, she had to meet the standard for the marathon Olympic trials. And this was, to put it mildly, a really difficult goal to go after, especially after pregnancy. But Elvin did go into the process of reaching this goal with some extra motivation.
My baby, Milo, I am so blessed to have him, and he's such an incredible baby. Like, ever since he got into my life really changed for the better. Um, Before the baby, I kind of wasn't sure what I want, and I wasn't so confident in also fighting for myself, standing up for myself, let me say. But after the baby, I really thank him because I've gotten so much confidence that I never knew I had. He's taught me so much about resiliency, coming back from maternity leave, postpartum, trying to get back to elite level shape, to make the Olympic trials really taught me a lot. And it's because of Milo that I was able to discover that about myself. And, sometimes we wrap our heads so much around the struggle and the pressure. And, I remember those days that I was just crying, but some of the days I was just crying because of joy that I have this human. So for me, moving forward, I just feel like, yeah, my son has given me so much, and I can really face life, anything that life throws at me.
Elvin did reach her goal of qualifying to run in the Olympic Trials Marathon just 18 months after giving birth to baby Milo. Making that standard was a huge accomplishment all on its own. And Elvin did race in the Olympic Trials Marathon, which took place in February of this year, 2024. She did not, however, make the Olympic team, and with that, her time in WCAP did come to an end. For now. But by no means does this mean that Elvin Kibet is done with running.
Running has been such a huge part of my life. I mean, it's because of running that I am even here today in the United States. Everything that I have accomplished, it really started with running. My degree in school, everything that I've accomplished, even me and Shadrach, our home here, everything that we have, we've given back to our communities back home. We've done so much. It's because of running, and that's why I love running so much, and I'm so passionate about running. I always push for running, and even though my journey with WCAP ended kind of abruptly, I have so much hope for me to do much more in running, even if it's not elite level. I have so much hope to contribute into to the society through running, really. As far as moving forward for me, I'm taking a little break, going to school for 1 year. And after that, yeah, I am really interested in coming back to marathons. And just like my sisters, they've raised babies, they come back, they go back, have more babies and come back to running again. I want to do that. And even if it's not the elite level, it's something. And because running is just so huge in our lives. And Shadrach is still running. I plan to go with him to New York Marathon and Boston Marathon, and continue travel and have so much fun. And now we have a son, and it's gonna even be much better. It's gonna be a party every time. And who knows? Who knows who's gonna be in the chain of command for WCAP? Who knows if I might run the standard for the marathon and go back? We'll see.
We will see. One thing is certain, whatever Elvin does going forward, running will certainly be a part of it. And that does bring us to the end of Elvin Kibet's incredible running story on the podcast. Thank you so much, Elvin, for coming on Women's Running Stories and sharing your journey. I am really excited to see what you do from here. And of course, I will be following what happens next for Elvin Kibet, and you can join me. Look to the show notes for how to follow Elvin on social media, and also look for a link to how you can get your copy of All in Stride by Joanna Garton. It is a fantastic book which gets into many other parts of Elvin's story than you heard here. And it also tells the story of Shadrach Kipchirchir, as well as elite modern pentathlete Samantha Schultz. And that does bring us to the end of this episode of Women's Running Stories. I am Cherie Louise Turner. I am the host and producer of this podcast. Thank you again for being here. I always appreciate you listening. And until next Tuesday, I do wish you healthy, joyful strides forward.
Women's running. Women's running stories.
Welcome to Easy Conversations, a podcast about covering the incredible human ability to overcoming adversity. I am Furkan Dania. I am a therapist and mental health advocate. Each week, my objective is to sit down with a guest and share their story of how they were able to find meaning and purpose through their adversity. These are conversations that we have deemed to be difficult, but they don't have to. Together, we can find a shared understanding. This is a podcast for everyone.